Well, that's the question, isn't it? Are spoilers more of an aesthetic significance or existential? You see, Fritz Lang said...
Well, regardless of what Lang said, the truth of the matter is that the spoilers are often presented as a faux pas, and not what they really are, which is weaponized conversation directed towards someone specifically with the intention of ruining their human experience.
Oh, horseshit.
It's true. When someone talks of a film and gives away the ending or major plot point of a film, it's essentially quantifiable as a spiritual equivalent of Hiroshima or Nagasaki.
Don't be so dramatic, Glenn.
Okay, maybe that is dramatic. But it goes without saying that the best way to avoid the weaponized words in a conversation about film is to alert the counterpart that said conversation or statement may contain spoilers.
You know what? You're right. The following podcast contains spoilers for The Other Side of the Wind. You have been warned!
Now I'll drink to that.
I'm proud of you. Jesus, you killed
I
it.
don't know how the fuck I did that.
I essentially was writing this to try to give you as many words to trip you up on as possible.
I think I might have maybe messed up on the Hiroshima part, but that was...
But you made it seem like a natural pause.
Yeah. Dear God, how do I even follow up with that? Oh, wait, here we go. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to KFR News Radio. This is your host, Glenjamin Button, along with your host, Miguel Migusto.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
My dear quantifiable human being of a species of man, thank you for quantifiable.
You are unequivocally one of my favorite people in the entire world.
That's just hearsay.
Hearsay.
Mike, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. I was actually really looking forward to this movie, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But how are you?
I'm not bad. I'm just living it up. I just cleaned the shit out of my room right before this podcast. It was fantastic.
Cool. Nice.
Unequivocally, that is.
Nice. It is election day today, the day we're recording.
Or Apocalypse Day, depending on who you are.
I mean, Apocalypse Day was in 2016. We've been living in the apocalypse since 2016's election day. It's actually funny. The first thing I posted on election day was on Instagram was a picture of a sunrise because I got up early to beat the crowds for voting. And I said... the end begins with a sunrise.
It all begins.
And that was the last thing I posted. Because I just had a feeling that would be bad. But I had no idea. Anyway, without getting into politics, what movies have you seen this week?
I have actually, going back to further research how many movies I watched, I was a little disappointed in myself compared to the last couple weeks. I felt like I watched more, but joke's on me, I only watched 3 movies.
Oh, boy.
So I watched Harlem Nights, which was actually directed by Eddie Murphy. It's a 1989 film with Eddie Murphy himself, Richard Pryor, a bunch of other hooligans in there. They're not actually hooligans. They're actually impressive men who are great at comedic things. It was a pretty decent film. I didn't actually expect anything from it or hear that it was fantastic in any way. I think I can remember my dad watching it at one point, and I was like, I'm going to watch that. Yeah, it was fine. It was comedic in many ways. It definitely had its moments, but I don't even know if this was Eddie Murphy's directorial debut or anything, but... you could see he got some pointers from maybe some other directors in his comedic films and stuff like that. But overall, fun movie. Nice and peaceful. I giggled. And then the other one I somehow got you to watch, which I actually was not expecting, was Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman.
Isn't it Masterson?
Is it?
Or is it Marston?
I think it's Marston. Which, watching it blew my mind away. How good it actually was. Mainly from the standpoint of just like looking at it as this is how Wonder Woman was made, and what we have now compared to what it like turned out from the get-go.
I think I texted you that. I was like, oh man, these people are horny as shit.
Yeah, everybody wants their bods on each other's bods.
It's true. It's true.
And also just like the background going into it, and like is monogamous couple is not the right word, but
like a throuple.
Yeah.
Polygamous.
Yeah, polygamous relationship.
But it wasn't even like polygamy. It was just like these 3 had an understanding, and there was no one else involved. Polygamy usually is like an open relationship.
Yeah.
Whereas like I feel like if they tried
word
to...
for it.
Yeah.
That my small brain does not have.
Yeah.
But like just it's crazy how like not only was this like this movie wasn't just straight up about Wonder Woman. Like you got there eventually, but like it was the story of these people, and how one of them's bisexual, and you know what? Now one of them the other ones is bisexual, but the guy, he's like, well, no, I'm having a good time now, and and it's just a really like wholesome and like caring relationship. And then
it was definitely kinky and horny, but it didn't cheapen it.
Yeah.
And I'm just talking about this now, so I don't talk about it when because I did watch it, like you said. The thing that just made me laugh throughout the entire thing is that I remember when this was in theaters, I hadn't heard of it, but I just remember a lot of old people going to see it.
Yeah. And because also Wonder Woman, basically, it came out the same year, if I remember. So it was, I don't know if that was timed or scheduled correctly or what.
I don't know, but there was no young people going to see this. It was all old, elderly people. And I wonder if they knew. We often forget that old people get horny too. So maybe they did know.
Maybe they did.
Or if they don't get horny anymore, they used to get horny.
Yeah.
And they
want to relive those days.
They want to relive those days, yes. But I just to go over it before I get to my spot, I did enjoy it. Probably not as much as you. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it more as like a whole movie than an actual like, oh, this is where Wonder Woman came from or anything like that. Like I did see like bits of this in theaters when I was doing theater walks and stuff, but I was like, maybe I'll watch this. And I was blown away. Maybe that's why I gave it a higher grade than I should have, just because I expected less but got more.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So like that was besides our movie, that is it for me.
Cool. Well, I definitely toned it down from last week, but pretty much anything would have been toning it down from last week when I watched 25 movies. I still watched more than I thought. I thought it was going to be like 7 or 8. It only felt like 7 or 8. Including rewatches, I watched 14 movies. The first film I watched was Palm Springs with Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti. It's a kind of like a Groundhog's Day scenario, but there's 2 people in the Groundhog's Day. Actually, 3 people, but you learn that later. I thought it was really good, really entertaining and fun. It had very believable chemistry between the 2 main characters. It didn't feel forced, which a movie like that could often just have forced chemistry.
Was that on Hulu?
That is on Hulu, yeah.
Okay.
And if you have Hulu, you can watch it. It is. I do recommend it. Then I watched a movie called The Lodge, which is a horror movie with Riley Keough. I'm forgetting other things she's in, but she's in other things. And Richard Armitage, who I believe is from The Hobbit, which I don't even remember him being it. Maybe I'm just so used to him having a beard.
Yeah.
I just want to look this up real quick. Holy shit, it was him. Yeah, he was Thorin Oakenshield in the Hobbit movies, and yeah, I just didn't recognize him because he didn't have a long beard. He still had a beard, but it wasn't a long beard.
It wasn't crazy.
But yeah, that was pretty good. It's definitely understated, and I really enjoyed it for what it was. So I do recommend that too. That one's kind of mixed reviews. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it, or you're going to be like me and be in the middle. But most people love it or hate it. Then I watched a South Korean zombie movie called #Alive.
Yeah, that's been on the list for a little bit now.
It is incredible. It is really good. I highly suggest it. It's got the main guy from Burning, which we watched on the podcast. And it's really cool how it's done. Like the majority of it takes place just in this guy's apartment. Not even the apartment complex, just his apartment. And it keeps your attention the whole time and it's got a lot of good humor in it too to kind of keep it light a bit, but it's not a comedy. It's just, it's a well-paced, well-toned movie. Then I am going to please a lot of people with this. On Thursday, I had a cheesy action movie Thursday and watched RoboCop. First time watching RoboCop from 1987. It's good. I understand why people like it. I had seen the remake a while ago. And
with the guy's name that I cannot remember.
Yeah, the guy's name that neither of us can remember. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I get the hype. It's definitely better than the remake, even like having seen the remake first, a lot of times you like whichever one you saw first, but I didn't care for the remake. I actually enjoyed this one.
Yeah, they just went too futuristic and everything.
Yeah.
Where RoboCop was good because of its campy 80s-ness, and it just the new one went. I haven't seen the new one since it came out, obviously, but it was the older ones are actually my favorite compared to Terminator. I think I told you that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get into Terminator in a second, but I watched Con Air as well with Nicolas Cage, John Malkovich, and Steve Buscemi's in there.
I love that movie.
It had to have been written by an alien. Like,
I hate that movie, but I love that movie.
None of it makes sense for what any human would actually do in real life. Even like a bad human wouldn't do the things that these people do. So it had to be written by an alien just from how he observed people, and mainly from the dialogue. The dialogue, it felt like one of those movies, like people post those scripts that are like, I had a robot watch so many hours of this, and then I had to write a script. It felt like that.
Yeah.
But I had fun watching it. It was a good, cheesy, hokey time. So that's Con Air. Then on Friday, I watched Terminator Dark Fate. Honestly, so boring.
This was the newest one, right?
The newest one with Sarah O'Connor's back in it, and not young Sarah O'Connor, played by Emilia Clarke. That is in 2016 somehow, even though she would have been like 50 or something by that time. The time travel was probably part of that. I don't remember, nor do I care to remember. But yeah, Terminator Dark Fate was very boring, and like even the action sequences were boring. It was like, I feel like I've seen these things before. Like there was no ingenuity to it, which is weird because there's the director of Deadpool directed this one. Yeah,
well, there's also like the restrictions of like what the studio would want in the movies, what I would assume.
Yeah, what I don't get is why do you hire the director of Deadpool and not just let him go with it?
Yeah.
Like that's what I would have done. Be like, hey, if I were them, I would be like, hey, tone the humor down a bit, but otherwise you're free to go.
Yeah, do any cool action things you want. I don't know what this might not actually be the story, but he could have just fucked up on it. But
he might have.
I would assume that they were like, hey, do these cool things that people liked.
Oh, no, I 100% agree that probably is what happened, because studios suck and kill creativity. But I just don't understand why you would hire the director of Deadpool at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I watched Professor Marston and the Wonder Women. Yeah, I thought it was okay. We talked about that already. Pretty better than I expected, but still didn't enjoy it as much as you. Then I watched The Other Side of the Wind. We'll get into that. I watched a movie called Columbus with John Cho and Haley Lou Richardson. It's essentially about this girl who is staying in her small town in Indiana because she thinks her mom needs her and not living up to her potential.
Okay.
She meets this guy whose dad isn't from there but had a coma, so he's there like watching, taking care of his dad while he's in the hospital. And they bond over architecture because his dad's an architect and she loves architecture. And yeah, kind of coming of age story a bit.
Architecture's awesome.
Yeah, polar opposites meeting and then kind of learning from each other is the best way to describe it. I really enjoyed that. Highly suggested. Then I watched Red Road, which I forgot to mention. On Halloween night, I forced Caitlin to watch The Witch.
Ooh.
She did not care for it.
I did not expect anything else.
Because she doesn't like weird movies where people get naked, which, honestly,
shame on her.
I forgot that people got naked in The Witch. That's how, like, inconsequential it is to me.
Yeah.
And then we also watched Ready or Not, which is that movie with Samara Weaving where she gets married and then her in-laws try to kill her. And then we watched Coco. That was on Halloween night. Sorry, kind of backtracked a little bit. Then I watched Red Road, which has the actress Kate Dickie, who plays the mother in The Witch. This is one of her films from 2006 where she plays a security camera operator. Because I don't know if you know, but England has a bunch of security cameras. So they actually have operators watching them constantly to alert police. And she's one of them. She sees someone that she knew from a while ago and starts kind of like stalking him in a way. Yeah. And you know that they know each other somehow, but it's not revealed until later. But that was really good. I highly enjoyed that. But then the movie I watched today was possibly the best movie I've seen in a long time.
Oh.
It's in my number 2 spot. Still hasn't beat The Vast of Night for best of the year, but it is called His House. And I will say nothing more because it may or may not be my plug for
I see what you're doing there.
Yeah, so I may get into it a little bit later. But that's all I watched for this week.
Okay.
Way more than I thought, but I also not nearly as much as...
It's at least almost cut in half.
Yes.
Almost.
Yeah, and we still wasted a lot of time with that.
It's all
so
good.
let's get into news. I don't have any news, but I believe you have news, and I believe it is sad news.
I have the Lay Sad News, just
Lay Sad News.
Any other news almost in this channel. Good old Sean Connery has passed away. He's no longer with us at the ripe age of 90.
I believe he died on Halloween, too, correct?
Yeah, literally Halloween, and this is what I thought was not funny about his death, but where he died. He was in the Bahamas, just chilling, just like you would imagine Sean Connery would be, just chilling.
Oh, that's exactly how James Bond would die.
Yeah, that's how James Bond would go. 90 years old in the Bahamas, just chilling.
So was he not sick? Oh, he died in his sleep.
Yeah, he's been sick for years, which is why he hasn't really been in the spotlight at all, obviously.
Well, yeah, I mean, he also left Hollywood after League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I love that movie for how terrible it is, but I don't blame him.
Yeah. But yeah, sadly, but I mean, he's lived a huge, great life, 90 years old, long. So, I mean, the man, the myth, the legend.
Yes.
Moving on, James Bond.
James Bond. Rest in peace, good old Sean Connery. So, with that being said, I guess we should get into The Other Side of the Wind.
Yes.
Jay can't afford. The Ernest Hemingway of the cinema.
I just want to know what he represents.
The man is infested with disciples. I'm the apostle.
Just like me and God. How could you tell us apart?
Patrick's new movie?
The Other Side of the Wind.
What's that about the movie?
We don't talk about the movie.
So you old guys are trying to get with it. Is that what this movie's about?
Well, we don't actually know.
What do we know? Jake is just making it up as he goes along.
He's done it before.
The Other Side of the Wind. A Hollywood director emerges from semi-exile with plans to complete work on an innovative motion picture. It is directed by Orson Welles, written by Orson Welles and Oya Kodar. I said Kodar twice. Why did I say it twice? I said the exact same thing twice, like I was correcting myself, but said the same thing. Anyway, that's how you pronounce it too, by the way. Oya Kodar.
I wasn't judging.
I'm judging myself. That's the thing. It's starring John Huston, Oya Kodar, Peter Bogdanovich, Susan Strasberg, Norman Foster, Robert Random, Lily Palmer, Edmund O'Brien, and a little Dennis Hopper's in there too along the way. So the reason I picked this movie, if you listen to last week's episode, you know one of the first movies we talked about on this film was They'll Love Me When I'm Dead, or something along the lines of that title. I'm pretty sure that's the title. And it is a documentary about the making of this movie, which Orson Welles was making kind of like a autobiographical type film because he was coming out of semi-exile and when he was filming this, and it ran into a bunch of problems. Essentially took 15 years of Orson Welles to even get it to somewhere where it could be made into a film. And then he died before it could be finalized. So then Peter Bogdanovich, who was a close friend of Orson Welles and is in this as Brooks Otterlake, worked with someone else and compiled previous cuts and notes and memos from Orson Welles in order to compile this and release it via Netflix in 2018. So that was a big reason why I like it. I love Orson Welles. I think he changed cinema in just with Citizen Kane. We talked about it a little bit in the episode where we talk about the documentary, where he would come up with shots no one even dreamed of beforehand, and it was all from him being a stage actor and not understanding that no one really did that. And then when people asked him why he was doing it, he would just say, "Why not?"
Yeah.
And so regardless of how the rest of his career played out, Citizen Kane's still widely regarded as one of the best movies of all time. I think
not the best.
Yes. I believe it deserves that. I know a lot of people see that and then they're just like, oh, okay. I mean, it's an okay film. It's not so much the film itself as it is what it did for cinema. And
it's one that I have to rewatch because it was one of the first ones you recommended to me in my earliest stages of trying to get into film.
Yeah, I think you would appreciate it a lot more now.
Yeah.
And, Citizen Kane's been a major influence to me throughout my life. It's not my favorite movie. It's not even in my top 10, maybe not even my top 20 favorite movies, but it is a highly regarded film in my life. And I was really excited to see this. And how should we get into this?
I don't really know.
It's very obvious. I'm sorry to cut you off. It's very obvious that this is semi-autobiographical.
Yeah.
Because you could see a lot of Orson Welles in John Huston. John Huston obviously puts his kind of rugged persona onto it, but as far as his character and all the critiques that he was receiving, that is
just
definitely
seemed pretty blatant that it was more about him than just some random bloke. I was kind of struggling to even kind of find topics because we did that episode 2 years ago. Glenn has small brain. Glenn doesn't remember most of it, to be honest.
Small, smooth brain.
Smooth brain.
I mean, I'm in the same boat. While I was watching, I was like, damn, I should have watched the documentary again before this.
Or even just listen to that podcast or just watch that documentary again. Probably would have helped a whole lot.
Yeah.
But Glenn likes to watch movies the day of the podcast.
Yeah,
so
you do. You really do.
I want the freshness to all be there so we can talk about it and I don't lose any thoughts. I messed up a little bit. So it's going to be pretty difficult as far as going back to the documentary goes or anything like that. Even my Orson Welles knowledge isn't exactly the best or at all.
Well, that's why I'm here, baby boy. So I think the number one thing about this film, obviously, it wasn't finalized by Orson Welles himself as he had died in 1985.
And they made that pretty clear right from the get-go.
Exactly. And they even take Peter Bogdanovich's character in the very beginning, do a little voiceover, and make it the exact same scenario that happened, but it's his character editing the film for him after his death, which happened the night of this party in question. I think the thing that jumps out the most, though, is obviously the way it was filmed.
Yeah.
The way it's filmed documentary style, but it's more so in a way. The only thing I can compare it to is every documentary I've ever seen on the JFK assassination, where the government went out and got as many people's footage from when it happened, to get as many angles as they could to really try to solve this thing. It cuts back between color and black and white. Bad exposure, good exposure. It's all over the place stylistically, which you think would be a jumbled mess. But in my mind, the way it is cut is so smooth that you barely even recognize when it cuts from black and white to color, which is obviously the biggest change. It's done so smoothly that it is seamless. It's almost as if it was shot that way on purpose, which it was. But the way it's told is that it was just a compilation of everyone's footage. I think that's the biggest takeaway from this, is that he, for his last film, he really experimented with a whole bunch of shit. And
of course, from what I remember, they did say that there was hundreds of hours, but that is a shit ton of footage you have to siphon through just to edit. And I mean, as far as that goes, the editing team on this movie is deserve top tier brass.
Absolutely.
Because of how well it went through.
I mean, obviously, I'm sure there was a way to do this, but the thing that kind of grabbed me the most is there's obviously some scenes are filmed in 16 millimeter. I think there might be some 8 millimeter in there. The films from the actual movie are 35 millimeter, maybe even 70 millimeter. I don't know for certain. But you have all these different formats coming together, and this is before they edited with computers. So I'm sure they had a way in mind, but I'm not surprised that they didn't really edit it until nowadays, where all you have to do is digitize all those files or those reels and then edit them in the computer. But I really am curious how he would have done it, editing reel to reel like they used to back in the day.
I don't know if there ever was an intention to like finish it. It kind of just kept going, right?
That's a very interesting point to bring up, because I know that he worked on it for 15 years. A lot of it was political. He said political and technical. I don't know if he said technical, but they listed reasons why it wasn't filmed or finished in the 15 years before his death. And I don't recall what it is. Political was one of them, which I thought was weird. I don't know how politics get into this. Granted, it was the 70s and 80s, so who knows? Yeah, I mean, knowing Orson Welles, I wouldn't be surprised if he was just kind of going with it and then had no intention of finishing it.
Just straight, maybe some spite.
I
don't think. I mean, again, I don't know too much about it, but I don't think there was any real intention, and it seemed that way, that there was ever really intention to finish the film.
Yeah.
They ran out of budget because he wouldn't finish it, and just the obscure things that he would do, and just on set, and just you could see this movie, all the shit that happens in it over the 100 hours of filming. I don't personally think that there was ever an intention to film it. It just kept going, and he wanted to keep changing things, and he kept going with it, and it kept going.
Yeah.
And obviously, eventually it had to stop going. And then we finally got this one right here, which, I mean, personally, I think as the story alone, I think he definitely wanted to show what he was going throughout everything in like Hollywood and stuff like that, and wanted to drive it all away from him and stuff like that. And I think as a movie as a whole, like I enjoyed it, but it definitely was very blatant about him and stuff like that. So it was hard to take that.
I mean, it made you hate Hollywood and filmmakers. The thing that kind of got me the most is the we kind of satired it in our spoiler opening, where it's just all these people talking about films using nonsense filler words that don't really mean anything.
Yeah.
And that's always the thing. Like, I've always disliked those kinds of people, just because what they're saying is empty in a way. Like, they're trying to sound super smart. They're trying to break it down to a science and not an emotion, which is all what film and art is supposed to be. It's about emotion.
Yeah.
And emotion, for lack of a better word, is dumb. Like, you don't need to overanalyze emotion, because it doesn't matter what the intention was. It's what you felt. To kind of piggyback off of that, which, like, as much as I don't like David Lynch as a filmmaker, I've always admired that about him, is that he never explains his movies. He's always just like, how did it make you feel? Then that's what it was. And whereas these people are like trying to break down every single thing, and that's the beauty about film, is that you don't really need to. We obviously like breaking things down here, but not to the extent that they were trying.
Not to a super extent with, scissors and a knife.
Yeah, trying to find meaning in nothing. Kind of a real life example of this is there's a documentary about the Beatles, and there's someone who
don't get me started on the Beatles.
Yeah, they all killed themselves in virgin suicides. No, but someone broke onto John Lennon's property, not with any ill intent, obviously. He died later on, and it wasn't from this. But the person was saying, "Oh, this song, you wrote it about me. This song's about me." And John Lennon was just like, kind of like Thanos. He was like, "I don't even know who you are." and that's the thing that always got me about like music snobs and film snobs, is that they always overanalyze things and make them too personal and don't just accept it for what it is. And I feel like he was definitely really harsh on those people, rightfully so.
Yeah.
But it just kind of gave me PTSD of being in film school and people just talking like that. I'm like, no.
People who go out of their way to sound super educated or want to express their education and stuff like that, or just like, that's kind of the thing that they're doing here. It's just like, it's just I just asked how you're doing.
Yeah, it's one step above people that tell you what their IQ is.
Yeah.
But overall, like, I think that the intent of this film is there. I enjoyed it for the most part, but I feel like it kind of lost its way from time to time. I think it had a strong beginning, a strong end. Parts in the middle were very strong, but overall, I feel like it kind of lost itself along the way. And it always came back around to it. But
and that's also the thing that it has this movie is that I don't think there was ever really an intentional goal to where it was going. It just went and changed things.
And that's kind of what the documentary is about, right?
Yeah.
Did you rewatch the documentary after, or just
no?
Okay, yeah. It just you're talking more about the documentary than I thought.
As I'm talking about this, I kind of remember more.
Yeah.
About the documentary.
He liked fudgesicles.
Yeah, he liked fudgesicles.
I remember that
he
much.
was living with the cameraman at a certain point and living off of him. There's like that one was a huge one. I don't know. It's hard to even rate this because it was never finalized in any way by him.
Yeah.
It's
like I think that this is obviously, because he is dead, as close as we'll ever get to his vision, but it's not even his vision. It's what people think his vision was.
Yeah. About like the entirety of the movie. Like I was lost in the beginning because like I'm jumping into it and there's all these different camera angles and shots and people talking really fast and really long, and then I'm just like, this is what I'm in for. Oh my god. And I just roller coaster strapped on, and then it went for there. And I was really enjoying the middle part when they got to the ranch. I was really enjoying that whole part until they not before they left, but at a certain point at the ranch I kind of not clocked out, but like lost as much interest as I had during the ranch part. The middle was strong for me when they were watching the film, when they were going into the entirety of making the film as well. It's a very difficult movie because
it is a weird movie.
So much to handle.
Yeah, and it's I think it's that way by design.
Yeah.
But John Huston gives a killer performance. Peter Bogdanovich also has a killer performance.
Peter Bogdanovich was my favorite from the get-go.
Peter Bogdanovich. He's one of those actors. He's also a director, but he's one of those directors that I hate to admit I always kind of forget about. But he always delivers quality stuff. It might not be amazing, but it's always going to be at least decent.
Yeah.
But he was great. The moments that were just him and John Huston's character, you felt the respect. It really kind of felt like Peter Bogdanovich and Orson Welles' relationship, which is probably why Peter Bogdanovich killed it, because he knows what Orson Welles is trying to get in those moments. But ultimately, I feel like the heart is missing, and that's because it is such a personal story to Orson Welles that unfortunately he just didn't get to finish.
Yeah.
Again, he might not have wanted to finish it because it was so personal, but I feel like had he been able to finish it, it would have pushed it over the edge from being just a solid, interesting movie that, if I'm honest, I'll probably never watch again, and pushing it over into greatness.
Yeah.
But the feat itself of compiling all of his notes and everything just to come up with something is remarkable in itself.
Yeah, I mean, as far as anybody being able to siphon through all of that footage and being able to edit all that, I feel like it definitely earns its props. Wasn't the girl that was in that movie, wasn't that Orson Welles' like girlfriend at the time?
Either his girlfriend or his actual wife.
Yeah.
Regardless, romantically involved.
Point, this was like, what was this filmed in, like the 80s, right?
It was
or maybe before
filmed in the 70s, and from 1970 to 76 is when it was filmed.
Regardless, at one point I sat there and I was like, I'm probably seeing some titties, and then lo and behold,
that's been a theme for quite some time.
That has been a little bit of a theme, and lo and behold, boom, bada bing.
Yeah.
That neither of those things had anything to do with each other, but I was curious about the girlfriend thing, and then I brought up the fact that, well, I guess they kind of both are attached in a way. Anyway. Yeah.
The thing that I liked about this is probably the last thing I'll say about it, because I feel like otherwise I'm just going to be speaking in circles.
Yeah.
But the film that was Hannaford's film, the character of John Huston, the film, when we watched what it was, I kind of loved how obscure in a bad way it kind of was. Like, it wasn't bad, but it was definitely bad, if that makes sense. Like, it was created by someone who was skilled but wasn't saying anything, and then you could see the embarrassment in his face while watching it with those people. And as someone who has made something that I was proud of until I played it in front of people, I fucking felt that hard. And it's something that is so palatable, or not palatable, that's not the right word. It's so universal. Like, even if you've just like given a speech in front of a class, that's kind of the same feeling where you're just embarrassed the entire time. And the fact that Orson Welles was still self-aware enough to know that had he done something similar, probably would have, the exact same thing probably would have happened. I found that to add character to the film itself.
I don't know how much more I actually have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, that was the last thing I have to say.
Yeah, like you said, we were going to keep running in circles if we keep talking about it, which I think is the point of this movie.
Yeah, really.
Movies and friendship. Those are mysteries.
Mr. Hannaford, could you please slow down?
Mr. Hannaford! What he creates, he has to wreck. It's a compulsion. Want me to bring you another scotch?
We'll have our own movie. A real movie.
The other side of the movie.
Well, here it is. If anybody wants to see it.
So I guess we could just get into the judgment then. All right. So since this is my pick, I guess I'll go first. If I'm honest, this might be the hardest decision I've ever made, because it is a solid film. It keeps your attention for the most part. You know, there's a few points in the middle where it kind of loses it, but then it brings you back in. And John Huston and Peter Bogdanovich in it are just absolute killer. But like I said earlier, I think it does miss that heart that would have been there had it been Orson Welles' final edit, which we'll never get, unfortunately. So with that being said, just because it's not his edit, it's not his vision, it's what people think his vision would be, I think we're missing a lot of it. So with that in mind, I don't think it is a shelf boy. I don't think it goes on the shelf as much as I wanted to, just because I love Orson Welles and I love the idea of this film, of a director realizing that he's capable of making mistakes in front of these people that love him supposedly.
Yeah.
I love that aspect of it, but overall, I think it just lacks heart. So yeah, I don't think it's a shelf boy.
Well,
and that's very hard for me to say. Like, I keep going back and forth still. But.
Yeah, this one's I won't say it's generally tough for me. I kind of, once I finished, I realized probably what it was going to be.
Yeah.
As far as the movie goes itself, it's an okay movie. I think I liked the documentary a lot because of how crazy wacky this movie was going to be.
Yeah, the documentary's a lot better.
And like you said, Orson Welles never actually finished this film. He passed away before it happened. But like I said, I don't think there was ever really an intention to finish it. That's just my opinion, though. So for me, I'm going in a different point of view with this. Although I liked the movie, it was fine. I think the fact that people got together somehow and was able to make a film out of all the shit that was compiled together and the dedication to the people who did that, I think I was going to give it a shelf boy because of that alone.
Oh, really?
But you are right in the fact that it has no heart, but I personally think there was never really going to be heart.
That's fair.
But that's to say, like, obviously this was kind of like his autobiographical kind of story, but I don't think he had intentions to finish it. Yeah. So there wasn't that heart in it. So the fact that people finished it, I think that would have been able to give it a shelf boy, or just at least make something of it.
Well, now you're making me second guess myself.
No, you put in your vote, boy.
I did, and it breaks my heart, really.
Yeah, I mean, you can do whatever you want. That's the power of free will.
Yeah, I still don't think I will, but like
Yeah.
the like I said before, the relationship in this film between John Huston, Peter Bogdanovich is just so beautiful. For lack of a better word, it's you see the love there. You see that Peter Bogdanovich knows exactly what's going through John Huston's head, and it's just surrounded by so much chaos by design, of course.
Yeah.
And kind of loses its way. And I almost would have rather just a straight up normal film about a struggling director trying to come back from semi-exile.
As far as the movie itself goes, I can take it or leave it. As far as the passion going into the movie goes, that's where I give it the shelf.
I think that I can live with this, knowing that the documentary, which showcases that love and effort, is on the shelf.
Yeah. It's also a whole different playing field that we watched the documentary first and not this first. I'm glad we did it the way we did it.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. But yeah, it's just not enough for me to put it on the shelf. So The Other Side of the Wind does not make it on the shelf with the likes of They'll Love Me When I'm Dead and Apostle and Handmaiden. You thought I wasn't going to say those, did you?
I was blown away, actually.
But, I still suggest people check this out, especially if you're a lover of film, especially if you love Orson Welles in any way. It's a feat for sure, but I just think it's missing that slight edge.
Yeah, if you got a fetish, this is definitely the movie for you.
A fetish?
Yeah, man, it's got a feat.
A lot of kinky shit, man.
Yeah, for real.
But yeah, that brings us on to plugs for next week. As I stated earlier, my plug is going to be a full-ass movie. It is a movie I watched today on the recommendation of John Clark, our good friend of the podcast.
Yes, sir.
If I'm honest, the less you know, the better going into this. Just know that it is a horror movie about a Sudanese refugee couple that moves into a haunted house in London. That is all I will say. Everything else, just go see it.
Good luck from there.
I'm not even going to play part of the trailer here. That's how much I want people to just see it without reading into it. It is on Netflix, and it is called His House.
Okay. There we go. Yeah. Mine is a completely different route. And mine went down a little. My other hobby, right? They've been banning really hard on some DMCA striking with music and copyright issues. So like I've been having to go around trying to look for different types of music to play during my streams and stuff like that. And I came across this one, which I'm gonna feel judged, and I already know it. Called Dragon Ball Lo-Fi. And if you ever grew up on Dragon Ball like I did, it kind of hits you in the heart. There's this guy on YouTube. He's actually on a bunch of obviously different social medias, but there's a playlist on YouTube specifically called Dragon Ball Lo-Fi by Rifty Beats. And it's a 40-minute playlist of all the songs that he's created that were inspired by Dragon Ball specifically. And if you grew up on Dragon Ball like I did, Dragon Ball Z, yada, 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 it kind of hits you in the feels. And that's a reason why I didn't watch as many movies as I did, because once I listened to this playlist about 10 times in a row, I started watching Dragon Ball. So I've been cranking a lot of Dragon Ball out here lately. So my plug is Dragon Ball Lo-Fi by Rifty Beats on YouTube. Kamehameha.
Kamehameha. Okay, that is our plugs for this week. Glenjamin Button, it is your turn to pick a film for us to discuss next week. What is that film?
All right, so this is going to also be inspired by something, this pick here. In memory of the late and great Sean Connery, I decided to pick a film that neither of us have seen. Hopefully. I saw that you didn't see it, so I'm hoping to God you didn't see it and didn't miss it. We are going to watch The 1986 film with Sean Connery, Clancy Brown, and Roxanne Hart, directed by Russell Mulcahy. I'm assuming that's how you say his name, but Highlander.
Ah.
From another time comes a man of great power.
You talk funny, Nash. Where are you from?
Lots of different places. A warrior of incredible strength.
You've the devil in you.
We've been kinsmen 20 years.
Connor MacLeod was my kinsman. I don't know who you are.
Because you were born different, men will fear you, try to drive you away.
A man uncertain of his future.
What you got here, Brenda, is a guy who's been creeping around since at least 1700.
As far as I know,
Mr. Krabs is in that?
Mr. Krabs is in it.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure he's the bad guy in it, I think. Highlander is about an immortal Scottish swordsman must confront the last of his immortal opponent. Okay, no, I did read that right. A murderously brutal barbarian who lusts for the fabled prize.
Ooh.
So yeah, that's a movie that, from what I understand, critics kind of hated, but it's very loved by a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I figured let's give it a shot.
Let's give it a shot at the KFR shelf. And where can we watch that, Glenn?
As far as I know, that's just on Amazon Prime. I looked on Hulu and Netflix, and I didn't see them on there. But so Amazon Prime.
Cool. So that is our assignment for next week, which is Highlander on Amazon Prime. I almost said .com. I mean, that's correct too. But as always, you can check out our Instagram, Keystone_Film_Review, Twitter, Keystone_Film, Facebook, Keystone Film Review, YouTube, Keystone Film Review, and on Letterboxd, I am Mike KFR.
And I am Glenn KFR.
And that will do it until next week when we get a little Scottish. And I apologize to everyone in Scotland. If it makes you feel any better, I feel like you should secede from the UK. Because that is what you want, and what you want is what you should have. But thank you, everybody, for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. Pusher.
I fucked your mother, Trebek.